Why do you need to do it? Because the conflict is so obvious and evidently contagious. James Kardatsky, CEO of Quiver Quantitative. I love this guy, okay? He started a website that tracks lawmakers' trades, okay? I can't believe I didn't think of this. And Trump's former chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, all right? Mick, thanks for being with me, brother. I love to see your sucker. Kardatsky, man, I love you, man. I love you. I love what you're doing for us in terms of understanding this. And I was just getting information from my producer about what you've been finding. In the guise of making the case about why this can be problematic, what have you learned about lawmakers just recently in terms of what trades they made and why?
Yeah, so I guess one of the biggest things that we've seen just recently with this new administration coming in is one of the big trends we saw was many lawmakers buying up stock in Palantir shortly before and after the inauguration. Palantir is one example of a company that's benefited very greatly from some of the things that have been happening recently within the federal government, and obviously the stock has, seen a corresponding rise as that's been going on. So this is just like one example, but really we see over and over again members of Congress buying up stock in companies that they directly impact and creating these conflicts of interest where we don't really necessarily know whether they're going to be acting in the best interest of their constituents or whether they're going to be acting in the best interest of their portfolio.
We just heard Pelosi is used as an example of this all the time. And I saw her on CNN, and frankly, everybody's playing it like she got exposed. I actually think she was given a pass because what she says is, well, my husband does it. It doesn't matter who does it, right? It's about when you do it. And if you seem to be trading in a stock right around when it's before you, like just to balance out the blame here, Marjorie Taylor Greene, is never really credited with being any kind of genius, but this was pretty clever. She bought Palantir 2 weeks before they secured a $10 billion contract. Now, even if that's a coincidence, it reeks of conflict, does it not?
Definitely. And I think, just the fact that this trading is happening, whether or not in any specific case, it was, them doing these trades because they knew things in advance of news being released to the public. Whether or not that's the case, it's still from the outside looking in, like you said, just reeks of potential corruption, creates conflicts of interest going forward where, again, legislation is going to continue to be passed in the future that's going to impact Palantir. People like Marjorie Taylor Greene continue to hold large positions in that company. So how can we know whether they're going to be, again, passing legislation that helps their constituents or whether it helps the company?
Mick, I know that you guys can make a lot more money out of Congress than you can, but they're making $175 grand a year. It's not like we're asking them to do it for free, and it is supposed to be public service. What is a legitimate reason for the president to go bad on Hawley?
I don't get it. I think O'Reilly's wrong about this one. By the way, I loved your video from the car about how you were wrong in the past. The one question I've got is, how could you possibly have been stuck in traffic when you were moving so quickly? But anyway, O'Reilly is just wrong about this. They're not denied the ability to deal. They're not denied the ability to deal in the capitalist system. You can still buy broadly held mutual funds. Look, I've been in the House. I've been in the White House. When I was in the House, I could own individual stocks. When I was in the White House, I could not. I was not allowed to under the rules that were in place at the time, and I'm pretty sure are still in place. So there's a different set of rules for the White House right now than there is in Congress. Look, insider trading is illegal. It's always been illegal. You cannot trade on inside information. If Marjorie Taylor Greene had inside information before she bought Palantir, she could go to jail for that. This is an appearance issue. And you're also right about a conflict of interest. Am I acting in my own best interest or the country's best interest? That's why this needs to change. I've never seen Donald Trump on the wrong side of two 80-20 issues in my entire life. He's on the wrong side of Epstein, which is 80-20, and he's on the wrong side of this. And I'm not sure what's happening down at the White House, but he's getting bad advice from somebody. He should be supporting what Hawley is doing.
MTG says, by the way, Kardatsky, that it's an advisor who makes these calls. But again, even if it's true, okay? She told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution she relies on an advisor to trade on her behalf, doesn't have input on which companies are being traded. Now, first of all, there's a vehicle for that. It's called a blind trust. And unless that's what it is, again, it's open to scrutiny. And the timing alone creates an almost uncurable conflict. And, Mick is right. They can be investigated, but what have you ever learned, Mr. Quiver Quantitative, about who's gotten looked at for insider trading? The only stock case I can ever think of, and I don't think it was straight insider trading, was the Republican guy from Western New York who got jammed up on some kind of securities thing, Collins. But it's not common.
Yeah, exactly. The problem with the whole excuse about it just being a spouse or it just being a financial advisor is it's so hard for us to monitor what communication is happening between the member of Congress and their family members, their financial advisors, or people who manage their investments. And again, it's not like something where they're very actively, like the House Ethics Committee, for example, barely ever does investigations. Even if they do find wrongdoing, it's typically a slap on the wrist of, a couple $100 fine. So there just really isn't a good system in place for us to really, look case by case and make sure that each one of these transactions is completely clean. So in my opinion, it's a lot easier just to step in and say, this isn't something that needs to happen. There's really no good reason why members of Congress need to be allowed to trade individual stocks. We should really just go forward and, pass a ban to make sure it's not even something that's a question in people's minds.
Do it. Just don't be in Congress. Don't be in public service if you want to serve yourself. Mr. Kardatsky, I love you and thank you.